Hello, this is DrPaulCottrell, and I'm going to be talking about Facebook. All right. Now, I did a series of videos going over the book by Dr. Taleb about anti-fragile, the fragility of markets, the fragility of systems. Now, this was during my pre-dissertation days. And the book, when he first came out, when it was first published, was pretty important to understand social systems. Another book that came out years later by Niall Ferguson, called The Tower and the Square, also talks about social systems, complex systems, and the horizontalization of um, of information, of organizations. So those two books are really important to kind of having in the back of your mind with this little mini lecture that I'm going to do. So the idea from Niall Ferguson is that through technology, things are becoming more horizontal, not vertical. The tower back in the days of, let's say, the Middle Ages, you had to go to an established monastery or whatever to get the information that was stored in the tower, right? And then you had the square, which is just public discourse, all right? Now, as information becomes more disseminated, you have there's more of a democracy of information instead of it being left to the elites, the ivory tower. So that was kind of what Niall was going after on this, and how our social fabric could change because of this horizontaling of the economy of our information. With Dr. Taleb's book, it's about how social systems become more fragile when you're building a system on top of a system on top of a system. All right. Now, Niall's perspective with the tower and the square, the public square is more stable. All right. This is where the anti-fragileness comes in. It's more stable. It's distributed through more people over a larger area, while the tower is very tall, but it's covering a very small square footage. So it's more fragile. It could fall. All right. How does it fall? Changing of social systems, wars, taxation differences, changing of regimes, whatever it is. So what's more stable is the square, all right, which is public discourse, where people can get information, all right, the town hall, the open environment, or the tower, right? Now the tower could fall, right? Because it has a very small square footage. It's harder to break the square, all right? With Dr. Taleb's point of view, I'm going to use an analogy with Earth, with the Earth. It took a long time to consolidate dust particles and gas particles as our solar system was just gas, and then it started to condense, and eventually we had the sun. It had enough internal pressure to ignite. So you had nuclear fusion, and then around the sun, there was dust particles that eventually coalesced into planets over time, right? It took a long time to have that. That amount of time made the Earth very anti-fragile, all right? It takes an awful lot of energy to destroy the Earth, right? It takes less energy to destroy the Earth's surface and life on it, but to actually destroy the Earth, where it was just dust particles or chunks of rock floating in space, it would take a Earth, another size planet to hit it to destroy it, right? Or the Death Star, you know. But okay, so the Earth is very, very anti-fragile. But animals, right, that live on the Earth, right, they're less robust. They're more fragile. Okay. So if you look at systems, the lower level systems are more stable, and the higher level systems that are built on top of this lower level system are more unstable. Now, the idea is that try to build something that has some sort of anti-fragileness. Okay, and as we see, life is somewhat of a fractal. And I've brought this up in stuff that I've written about fractals, but the golden ratio and fractals, right? All right. But what happens is that social system, this is, let's say, the baseline system, the Earth or whatever. And then when you look at fractals, you'll have fractals within fractals that are building off of each other, right? Those are systems on systems on systems. So this is the Earth. This may be of, let's say, plant life, and this may be of, or maybe some sort of bacterial life. It may be plant life, and then maybe off of plant life, some herbivore. Now this herbivore is fragile, more fragile than the plant, and the bacteria is more fragile than the Earth. Okay, so the smaller fractal could break away easily. It could diminish. It's harder to diminish, let's say, the Earth. And there's even a bigger fractal. This is a piece of a much larger fractal that this cannot be drawn on. That this fractal, the Earth, is off of, let's say, the solar fractal, and the solar fractal is off of the much larger fractal, which is the Milky Way. And then this expands out to the Big Bang, okay? So there's fractals of fractals of fractals. And the smallest fractal are the most fragile. Okay, now how does this relate to Facebook? If you remember, Facebook and Zuckerberg kept on wanting to have some sort of platform, okay? Facebook is not really a platform. I would put it as it's a It's a website, all right? It's not a platform. A platform is more like a piece of something that's built on top of something, like an iPhone or a Google phone or an operating system, a computer. That's a platform. And a computer has software. So you have a fractal. Okay, so we'll do this in the sense of Facebook. We have a computer. Let's say it's Apple. It's an Apple computer. Okay, that's that fractal, a larger fractal. Then you have that. Then you have. I'll make it simple and just say this is an iPhone. Okay. Okay. And on that, we have another fractal, and that is the iOS operating system. Okay. And then another fractal on that is the app of Facebook. Okay. Now, Facebook just had an earnings announcement where they're way lower than expectation. And that the market sold off more than, I was in at 25 to the 28, 20, 25 to 28% of its market cap. All right. So Zuckerberg lost a lot of his wealth, like about a quarter of his wealth in the last 2 days. Now, why did that happen? It happened because they can't make money on tracking you on the iPhone because the operating system, the iOS operating system on the iPhone, because the far majority of people on Facebook use an iPhone, they have a feature now on the iPhone where you can opt out of being tracked by certain apps. And if you opt out from being tracked by Facebook app, they can no longer know what you're doing to target ads. And Facebook makes money on ads. Okay. So in this fractal, there's an economy fractal with Facebook that we could draw too, but there's this Facebook fractal. And because the iOS has a feature that turns off tracking, it's lost its connection, its ability to live for Facebook. And now it's no longer attached to something that it was living on. Okay, it's kind of similar to blood vessels in a way. Blood vessels are also fractals. All right, so you have a blood vessel, all right, and it will bifurcate. Okay, and it will go and become smaller and whatnot, right? Right, and it will do something like that. All right. Now, the tributary off of this blood vessel was feeding an organ, and that organ was Facebook. But when the blood vessel is occluded, it can no longer get blood, and it has lost its connection to its source. And that source was the iPhone iOS. All right. So Facebook was very fragile because it wasn't, early on, if you remember, they were trying to get on the home screen on Apple. All right. They wanted to have a little button on the home screen, and Apple denied them that because they knew the farther down they are in that, the more of an app they are, and they're not part of the actual iOS system, they knew that they would be fragile. And that if a social system changed, such as opting out of being tracked, then their lifeblood is occluded. And this goes back to what I was saying about the tower and the square. The tower for Facebook wanted to control your activity, collect data, and sell that data to advertisers. But people started to change because of COVID and because of an awareness of being tracked and not wanting to be tracked. And so the power of the square, the horizontalness of society, got to a point where they said no to the ivory tower. And the ivory tower of Facebook is starting to crack and may collapse. And through this social change and wanting civil liberty and not to be tracked, because you got to remember, what is Facebook? Facebook wants to do AI, wants to collect data, your digital data. I'll call it data D, digital data, right? And data G, which is your genomic data. And if you don't believe me, Zuckerberg was given an honorary doctorate where he didn't earn it at Harvard University. And he made a speech during the commencements. This was about, I don't know, maybe 2017, maybe around there. Maybe it was 2018, but he had a commencement speech, and a big part of that, his commencement speech was about you collecting genomic data on individuals for this genomic revolution. Now, do you trust a guy that you can't even trust this guy with your photos and your digital data? How can you trust this guy with your genomic data, your data G, right? This guy had a power trip. And not only that, everything he's done, it's been theft. This guy comes from theft. So this is what's happening, is the tower is cracking because of an awakening in the square. The blood, the iOS, cut them off. So now Facebook used to be this size, being able to get blood, and now it's this size. It's shrunken down. Okay. Kind of like kidneys. Kidneys don't get good flow, then eventually they shrink, they atrophy. So you can kind of see that biological systems are fractals, cosmology is a fractal, social systems are fractals. Technology and how they build on top, how technology builds on top of each other is a fractal, right? So Facebook is starting to collapse. Can they stop the bleeding? Yes. But I think Facebook is going to be a much smaller company. And that once people realize that the metaverse is a waste of your time, then, and that living in the real world is probably better, I think that people will start to gravitate away from Facebook and maybe, gravitate to Patagonia, all right, and go hiking or something. So that's my take on Facebook, and the importance on what Dr. Taleb and Dr. Ferguson said in their books. There's a fragility when you build something on top of something on top of something. All right. And if one of those underlying pillars start to crack, then everything above it is very unstable. All right. You can see this in stocks and especially in derivatives markets, where you have a derivative of a derivative of a derivative. And if there's some instability within that market, then everything collapses, such as Lehman. The mortgage-backed securities and double CDs and the CDOs and all this, the credit default swaps, CDSs. It's been a while. Like, my mind is being so trained in medicine that it takes me a little time to like navigate towards finance. But that's my take on Facebook. I'm sure that nobody has talked about Facebook in terms of fractals and some of the more, I don't know, philosophical issues with Facebook. So please subscribe to my channel. All three channels on YouTube, my Rumble channel and my Brighteon channel. Someone keeps on saying, "Oh, your Brighteon channel, is that still up?" Yes, it's up. All you have to do is just look at the description box and click the link, and you get to the Brighteon channel. Subscribe to all of them. Please go to my Patreon account to help support my research, and go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the products that I offer. I sell nanosilvers to help neutralize pathogens and to boost up your immune system. I sell C60, that's a very strong antioxidant that helps with mitochondrial health and reducing aging. The Boomer products are great supplements that you can take for various reasons, lowering inflammation, antioxidants, good for treating some illnesses like colds and stuff. I have zinc and vitamin C and turmeric, resveratrol. I have collagen to help with your skin. I have lots of different products. Go to the store and take a look at them. I also have some great deodorants that are all natural, that were designed and made by Gail from Rainbow Herbals. All natural, very good product at a reasonable price in citrus scent and lavender peppermint scent. Please purchase those deodorants, and that would be a great way for you to use something that is natural and that it puts you on that path of detoxification. If you use like the Procter & Gamble stuff, that has aluminum in it. It has other chemicals that you may not really want to use or may be allergic to. So this is a great alternative, especially if you want to be more natural in your consumption of products. So please go to the store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Links are in the description. Click the link and purchase the products. Thank you for supporting the channel. Please go to the store and purchase the health products that I offer to help your family. In addition, I have some books out there that are also available on Amazon and on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Purchase those if you'd like to read about some finance. I did some publishing on some course papers that I did at Harvard. I wrote a book about artificial intelligence. I wrote a book about my financial market theory called Market Armor. I think the fragility stuff I wrote about in Market Armor, I think. And also, I might have written a little bit of it in my book on chaos theory and economic emergence. But I will have a new book out this year that is going to be my research on the TAP protein, the HIV-1 TAP protein, and how it reduces GBS, how it can be used to treat GBS and other autoimmune disorders, such as, the V. All right. So that's my take on Facebook. Please subscribe. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.